Hello, Sociology class. It's Mr. Rio here, and I'm finally getting around to go over the term sum. Some of this stuff I'm doing it in place of what some teachers do on Zoom. There are just so many conflicts trying to schedule Zoom meetings with other classes and other teachers, and no matter what time I seem to pick, a big chunk of our class can't make it, and we can't require it anyway. And I realize, whatever time of day, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever, people are going to have conflicts or it doesn't work. So it's probably best that I do things like this just in a video. Then you can watch it whenever you want. You can watch it again. I doubt you're going to want to watch this one again. This is not an exciting one, but it's an important one. And that is, I'm just going to quickly review a few things here going on in the class. Going back to when we first started about 2 weeks ago, or slightly over 2 weeks ago, that first week was just some introductory things. So if you're new, if we have a few people join us about a week or so ago, if you're new to the class, don't panic. Go back to week one. You can knock that out in no time. Just basically write a little bit about yourself and submit. Um, One thing you're gonna hear me say over and over again: email me when you got a problem, an issue, a concern, a question. Just send me an email. That usually works best. And first week got the syllabus and variety of other information. And then they got assignment with the Do Schools Kill Creativity. And the good news is the majority of the students in this class are doing really well. They're doing all the assignments, they're doing them on time or close to it, and they are, doing a good job and doing what they're supposed to do. As far as deadlines go, occasionally I extend deadlines. If you contact me personally once in a while and got some kind of situation going on where you need an extension, I usually grant it without a problem. And off the record, if I have something due, say on a Friday, chances are I'm not going to get around to grade till at least Sunday. So usually got an extra day or so after the deadline that you're pretty safe. I'm not likely to grade it. So if I get around to it Sunday or Monday or even sometime not till Tuesday, if as long as it's there and done right, I'm usually not going to go out of my way to figure out if you turned it in on time. But it is important to be on time or as close as possible and to get it done. Now, if you're just dragging out and purposely don't care and I don't hear from you and doesn't seem there's any motivation and I call home and no one seems to be too concerned about it, then, there's nothing I can do. But hopefully no one, flunks the class and hopefully everyone gets the easiest thing to do is stay caught up. End of story. So do your best to stay caught up. Okay, for the slides, we had a little bit of a problem. I'll just be honest about this. I thought, well, it's a lot of slides. I'll break it in two pieces for you. One part of it due last week and the rest of it due this week. Well, that sounded good until people started submitting it and then wanting to continue working on it. So they went to submit. I thought you can just submit it. You still got your original copy. You do your first 30 slides and can finish it up and then submit when it's all done for this week. Well, there were problems. People were submitting it and couldn't get back the original. Some said the pictures disappeared when they did that. I'm not sure. So either way, what I decided to do was kind of cancel the original assignment. So this one here, I reworded it. I call it canceled. I'm not doing 30 points here. And I did everything I could to go through here and return everything. Now, some notes did not return. I don't know why. They just don't give me an option to return it. But I did the best I could to return it all. So hopefully everyone got access to their notes again. And then what you do is you just finish them up and get your 50 done and do it right and submit them this week Thursday. Okay, I extended that from tomorrow Wednesday to Thursday, so just get in by Thursday. And why I'm done by Thursday anyway, because the test is Friday. Okay, chapter 1 test, a lot to know, and that's the big thing that you're doing. There's a few other little assignments. They're not much. There's this every teenager needs to know assignment. That's just a teen talking with their opinion, and you watch it and you submit according to the guidelines a summary and opinion. Now, if I ask you to write a certain amount, like in this case here, whether it be paragraphs, sentences, whatever, if you want full credit, make sure you do the minimum. If it asks for 5 or 6 sentences and you write 2 or 3, you're not getting full credit, even if what you wrote was a nice 2 or 3 sentences. I want you to do both quality work, do the best you can, and do the amount, which isn't much usually. When you're not sure what to write about, you can always, put in some examples. You can always share some of your opinion, or go back and find another point or two. So it's really not that hard to do. And I think you'll find this kind of interesting. It's a teen talking about some teen-related stuff I'm not going to go into right now. The test. The test will be based on the notes only, so it doesn't come from TED Talks or anything like that. And you can use your notes. But I'm going to set it, it's going to be Friday. You'll be able to open it probably anytime you want on Friday. And I may time it to about an hour and 90 minutes. But most of you will be, whatever time I pick, will be way more than most people need. Typically, when we've done tests like that in class, even people took their time, took maybe 40 minutes on it. So if I timed it an hour, hour 15, hour 30 at the most, not a big deal. Okay? Most people get it done much, much sooner than that. It's a little different this year. Normally, we wouldn't do it with the notes. We'd do it in class, and you'd have to study and not have it with the notes. Because it is with the notes, I'm not putting as much emphasis on the test for your overall grade. There will be worth points. Obviously, you want to do your best on it. But the majority of the points for this class will be from your assignments and from your projects and things like that. So make sure you do all that. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to do just a little review here. And I'm going to go into, I'm actually going to take it off of this sample. I shared a sample with you that another student had made in a previous class. So you get a pretty good idea what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some kind of nice picture or graphic on each slide. I'm looking for each key term, rotate colors around so you get different colors for the key term or concept. And this is a real nice one. Do a nice layout. Yours doesn't have to look just like this. Now, some pictures are obvious, like Auguste Comte. Try to find a picture of him, or Harriet Martineau, or Herbert Spencer, or Karl Marx. Some are not as obvious, like economic changes. So when in doubt, just do a Google search, see what comes up, find something reasonable. As long as it's ballpark reasonable, I'm not overly picky. I'll actually go back to the notes. Probably be a little bit better for what I'm about to do. Okay, the original, everything's in the test is going to be off the notes. This is, like I said before, this is probably the most boring chapter. And I just say that because things get, in my view, more interesting. But it's important because when you take a course, whether it be sociology, psychology, whatever it may be, you have to learn the fundamentals. And these are the fundamentals. So it opens up here comparing sociology, which talks about sociology as study human society and social behavior through social interaction and social phenomena. That's kind of fancy words for saying how groups affect you. You're going to hear me use the word group a lot. And so your interaction with various groups, your peers, your family, school, work, if you go to a church or synagogue or religious community, if you're part of a sports team or a club or organization, if you're involved with things involving your ethnic group or racial background, your economic group, which economic groups you're involved in or born into. There's a lot of different ways you interact with people and groups and things that are connected to you. Then it also compares a little bit to some of the other social sciences. So that's different from the science. Social sciences are like anthropology, psychology, economics, political science, and history, in addition to sociology. So it just kind of compares a little bit. It defines these a little bit so you can see what why these overlap a little bit. There's things with sociology that have to do with economics or psychology or anthropology or political science or history. Those also are different subject areas. So, but they all kind of go together in a way. So if you take these types of classes, you'll come across some of the same people and some of the similar type things. Social interaction and how people relate to one another and others' behavior, that's pretty self-explanatory. Social phenomena, that's observable facts and events that involve human society. Sociologists do a lot of studies, they do a lot of research. And a lot of the research involves observing, just observing what's going on, what's happening with people and events and facts and data. They do a lot of that. I'm not going to sit here and read every single definition. That's your job. You're fully capable of that. But just going to number 11, because that is kind of a big one there, sociological perspective. That's looking at social life in a scientific, systematic way. So just like a biologist will go out and do research, have a hypothesis, analyze the data, and try to come to conclusions about various phenomena, sociologists use a lot of that same type of thing, except they can't always prove everything in the same way that maybe a chemist or a physicist or a biologist does. So it's a little different type of a science, but there's still a study to it, and there's still, you know, ways that they collect their information and come to their conclusions. They look beyond commonly held beliefs. So oftentimes the reality of what's going on is different than what most people think. And they also look for patterns of behavior, patterns in society, patterns that connected to social problems, for example. We'll talk a lot about those. The sociological imagination is the ability to see the connection between the larger world and your personal life. So you see how you're connected to all society and groups and all these things that are going on around you, and seeing the relations between impersonal and intimate features of human life. So, yeah, we look at it all. We look at things that affect you that you're very much connected to, and things you may not even really give a lot of thought to. And the development of sociology, and this connects in with a lot of the people that are in the history coming up here. A lot of it happened in Europe in the 1800s. Europe had a lot of problems going on then. They had revolutions. They had a lot of industrialization was happening. People were moving from the country into the cities. Early industrialization and capitalism, as it's called, excuse me, was very chaotic. And factories were often not very good places to work. Workers are often treated very badly. Conditions are bad. You could be fired for being injured. There's child labor. There's dangerous conditions. And early capitalism did not look good. That's why there's a lot of critiques by people like Karl Marx that's saying, hey, this capitalism's not good. Look how terrible all these people are living and being taken advantage of. And that was true in early capitalism. Even people today who are diehard pro-business capitalists will say, that isn't the way capitalism should be. So Marx in the early days was one of those people that did a lot of critiques, and he's respected for that. Not that people agree with everything he says or all of his other beliefs, but he was a scholar. That's all he was. He was not a political leader or anything. And he was one of those that critiqued that. And that part, people say, he did a good job doing critiques. Where he got off track was he didn't see that there would be any other solution except having a revolution and getting rid of capitalism. And what ended up happening, as we know from our history, is many people, especially in Europe and the United States, decided, you know what, we don't really want communism or anything. We just want to fix what's wrong with capitalism. And that's what happened over the next 150 years. A lot of changes were made, and not that things are perfect anywhere in the world, but things got a lot better, and capitalism worked out pretty good with some checks and balances for our economy. Political changes, a lot of changes going on. They used to have a lot of kings in that in Europe, and then they're going to democracies or to other types of governments. Social changes, cities were growing, a lot of problems, ghettos, bad living conditions, crowded, pollution, a lot of economic changes with industrial revolution. So a lot of the early sociologists were influenced by these changes and wanted to study them, and often wanted to say, what can we do to make things better? Comte, which you'll see in one of the videos in the video assignment about him, he was a rather eccentric character that had a bunch of beliefs and rather strange ideas, but he did things that influenced what later became sociology, so that's why he's studied. Harriet Martineau translated a lot of his work. She lived in England and must have been probably fluent in French. He has a French last name, and translated his work, so she helped spread the ideas. And she also studied life in the United States. Herbert Spencer was one that took some of the influences of biology and applied it to studying sociology. And one of the areas that he influenced is something called social Darwinism, which I'm not going to really go into beyond mentioning it right now. I already mentioned Marx. He was looking at society conditions and the economy, and he believed economic imbalance would lead to conflict. And if you study Marx and other things he said and did, he thought there'd be a revolution eventually, and the people that owned all these factories, the capitalists, would get overthrown, and these workers called the proletariat would take over, and they would develop a new type of society where the workers ran everything, and they decided what to produce and how to produce it. And even though Marx himself only wrote these ideas, other people put them into practice in the Soviet Union, in China, where there were communist countries. They actually tried this out, and it failed miserably. So, like I said, Marx is, as a scholar, he's got some respect for some of the scholarly work he did about the problems, but his solutions and his ideas that led to communism and so forth have failed miserably. So that is not what he's respected for by probably 99% of the people. Emile Durkheim, he was in France. He played a big role getting the ideas of, scientific type of methods for sociology, what became sociology. And he also focused a lot on the functions of things in society. So you'll hear about functionalism. We'll be talking like, what's the function of a school? What's the function of work? What's the function of a family? And so forth. Max, we say Weber in English, but in German they pronounce it Max Weber. So if you watch a video about him, he'll say Max Weber because they pronounce the W like a V in Germany. And he was interested in certain groups of society. He had this idea called Verstehen, whatever pronounce it, to understand the actions of individuals. And he had something called an ideal type to understand the goals of society. So there's not much about that. Of course, all these people write books on them. So this is just introducing you to people that there's way more information out there about. The Chicago schools, a reference to the University of Chicago, where a lot of the early sociologists and that got started, and they not only wanted to learn about social problems and social issues, but they wanted to come up with solutions to them. What's a solution to poverty? What's a solution to racism? What's a solution to any other problems that may emerge in society? Kind of connected to that is Jane Addams. She opened something called Settlement House in Chicago. She not only studied the urban poor, which at the time were mostly white immigrants. It was before there was a large African American population, but they were starting that in Chicago too. But then also, what can be done to help a lot of these poor people living in these, slums basically. And but she was at the time not taking that seriously. Her works are more discovered later in years, and when you'll see that in the video about her. W.E.B. Du Bois, he was an African American scholar, and he studied African American neighborhoods and community, and he's highly respected for all that. And he focused on problems of race, and that was over 100 years ago when there wasn't a lot of discussion about such issues. People knew they existed. Obviously, the problems did exist. This was after the Civil War, late 1800s, early 1900s. There was obviously a lot of problems, but he was an African American who studied this. Modern perspectives of sociology. Like I said, functionalism looks at functions of whatever. Like I said, family, schools, work, you name it. Conflict, that they look at power relations, that there's all these different conflicts out there. There's workers and owners of companies. There's children and parents. There's rich and poor. There's different ethnic and racial groups that may have conflicts. There's people with different belief systems or practices. There's people with different interests. One person wants to develop a lot of housing in a rural area. Another person wants to leave it farmland. There's a lot of things like that that go on. Interactionism focuses how individuals interact in everyday life. So those are three areas of study within sociology. Major theoretical perspectives. I'm not going to go into detail on these. I kind of mentioned some of it up here. But you got the functionalist perspective. It goes in a little more detail. Conflict perspective, interactionist perspective. So you can read those on your own. Macro sociology looks at the big picture, large-scale societies and issues and long-term problems. Micro sociology looks at more smaller groups or situations or settings where there might be a problem. Like macro sociology might look at education in America, and micro sociology might look at education in Harper Creek High School. Okay, just to give one example. Globalization, there's more interactions and connections around the world that's going on. Some stuff here about research. Now, the end of the notes here, I'm just going to be really honest here. There's a lot of stuff here about the scientific method and how they do research in research terms. Obviously, you do that as part of your slide assignment. It's part of the notes. I got few, if any, hardly questions on the test about this last section. So pretty much from about 41 down, there might be one or two questions, maybe, but I didn't really focus on that on the test. So, it's there. Now, when you do the slides, your slides should be everything that's numbered plus the, sometime depending how I write the notes, I might put one for the title slide. I did that here. There could be a notes out there somewhere where I put title slide and then start numbering it. But either way, if there's however many number there are here, that's the slide you should have. This here would actually add up to 49. You literally would have a the end at the end if you want full credit. And you do like the sample I shared with you, you follow that other criteria. So if you do a good job, put some thought into it, it's a creative way you can do this. Now some of you might say, Mr. Rio, when I make slides, can I copy and paste these here over to the slide? If you can figure out a way to do it, go for it. And what students have told me in the past, and I'll tell you it right now for those of you actually watching this video, they can't really do it from this view when they first double click it, if you have it in this view here from Google Classroom. But look at this trick here. You click on the little three dots up here and open in a new window, which looks almost the same, except it's now got a download button. If you want to try downloading it and copy and paste from there, that might work. But students have told me that when they're in this view, they can do that. They can highlight, say like this here, and copy and paste it, and it seems to work. So those of you actually watching this video, get that tip. Might save you a lot of time, if not on this slides, maybe on the future. But that's pretty much my review right now. I'm going to share this video, and hopefully everybody watches it at least once, and that'll be chapter 1. Now in the coming weeks we'll have a chapter 2, or roughly do a chapter every 2 weeks, but I'm also going to be doing other videos that aren't necessarily about that chapter. So we got some pretty interesting videos and documentaries and that coming up, and the future chapters, in my opinion, are more interesting than the ones that we've covered so far. I mean, the first one that we covered so far, which is not bad. It's just fundamentals that you need to know. So, and by the way, these all come from a sociology textbook, and if you take a sociology class in a different high school or at the college level, you'd be covering the same stuff. At the college level, it might go a bit more in depth and cover more detail. That'd be about the only difference. So either way, good luck on the test. Study. Even though you can use your notes, if you don't do any advanced study, you would be scrambling. So you'd be much better off to study and do the test and do your best. So good luck, and any questions or problems, you can email me.